Hugh, welcome back. Haven't spoken to you in a while.
That's right, Nicola.
You've been up to no good as usual. But my eye turned to this story that you had written, which is just sort of funny and extraordinary in many ways. But I feel like saying, what is it about 71-year-old Gormy McMullan in his bat T-shirt that has attracted the 50-year-old, his junior Asian beauty?
Well, it's right. It is funny, but it's anything to do with Gormy McMullan is both funny and extremely serious.
Yeah.
Because Gormy McMullan is, and for a long time, has been a very dangerous individual, and he continues to be a suspect in the infamous Loughinisland massacre, which was 30 years ago last month. And it happened. Why it's significant in Ireland and remembered is it happened as Ireland was beating Italy in the World Cup finals. Ray Houghton, the Glasgow-born striker, had scored a great goal. And in a little village in County Down, Loughinisland, the UVF gunmen came in. Gormy McMullan was the getaway driver.
And he was 41 at that stage?
He was.
So what was his background up until that point?
That's interesting as well, Nicola, because he certainly wasn't a loyalist figure. He was brought up in East Belfast, was a huge rambling area in an estate called Clarawood, full of trees and hills round about. It should be an ideal place, certainly at that time. Working class, but everybody was working. They were working in the shipyard and the engineering factories of East Belfast, and that's where he was brought up. Now, people who knew him as a teenager, he would have been, the similar age to people that I spoke to. They remember him as a Bob Dylan fan. He had, in the old days of vinyl albums, he had all the latest Bob Dylan LPs, which would have singled him out as a bit different. And but like everything else, the Troubles certainly conditioned him, and he chose early on in the Troubles to join an organization called the Red Hand Commando, which was eventually taken over by the UVF. But they were busy people in East Belfast. And an incident happened on the edge of a Protestant estate known as the Braniel. And there was a pub there called the Hillfoot Bar, no longer there, Catholic-owned pub. Funnily enough, the owners of it were called O'Toole, which is the same as the pub in Loughinisland. And there had been an incident in there where the place was being robbed by some loyalists, and a policeman was in the pub, and he shot the robber. So he shot him dead. Now, the Red Hand Commando decided the Catholic-owned pub should be blown up. So the boss of the Red Hand Commando was a guy called Sammy Cinnamon. And Sammy got a bunch of his men together. A bomb was organized, and it was to be planted in the pub. And Sammy himself went up into the high flats, floor 7, so as he could have a good view of the bombing of the pub. And Gormy McMullan was one of the bombers. Unknown to Gormy and his friends, across the road in a street called the Roddens, there was a policeman lived there, and he witnesses the whole incident. And whilst they are in planting the bomb, he phones the police, and the police arrived on the scene as the bombers were making good their getaway. And Gormy was caught in behind bushes. He was hiding. So he went to court, and him and all the rest got 8 years each. So it was a significant sentence in the early 70s, 50% off. But it was a significant sentence for a young man. But whatever happened to him, that conditioned him towards a career as a loyalist paramilitary. It's who he met in jail, Nicola, that really set him on the course for where he ended up. And he met the people who were the Shankill butchers in jail. And in the run-up to the ceasefires, or after the ceasefires, Peter Taylor, the well-known BBC reporter, did a series of programs, one called Republicans and one called Loyalists. And Gormy McMullan was interviewed by Peter Taylor, and he said on television interview that he rated the Shankill butchers as a decent bunch of fellows. So Peter Taylor said, now, you want to readjust that? He said, I mean, these people chop people up, and he wouldn't desist from his view. They were a decent bunch of fellas. He said, in every bunch of young people, some lead and some follow. And he said, but I still found even those that followed were a decent bunch of lads. So that is what happened to him.
That was essentially his tribe, he was saying there, and he totally connected with these people. Yes,
Nicola, but what happened was even more significant. A very unusual thing happened because he was in East Belfast, and of course the Shankill butchers were West Belfast. But when he got out of jail, he linked himself, and although he lived in East Belfast, he linked himself to the UVF on the Shankill, which was seen then, and even now, you know by what's happened recently, the power of the UVF is on the Shankill Road, and he wanted to be near the power. In some ways, he saw East Belfast, like Johnny Adair once referred to it, as Silent Valley, because nothing very much happened there, because the IRA were not really any threat. So he linked himself to the UVF on the Shankill, and that was evidenced by he took part in a robbery in the Woodvale area, which is just the upper Shankill, and he was caught doing that and was jailed for 6 years that time.
Mm-hmm.
So he was...
And was it when he came out after that Loughinisland and County Down, the slaughter of the 6 innocent Catholics happened?
Yes, well, we went into a period. We went into a period where things started to get quiet, but they heightened up towards the run-up to the ceasefires in '94. He was a football fan, supporter of Glasgow Rangers, and at that time, if you were travelling cross-channel, you had to fill in a card known as a disembarkation card if you were on a plane or on the boat. So 85 Gormys on the boat with a friend of his travelling by boat to see the Rangers, and they refused to fill in their disembarkation cards. Scottish police take a dim view of that. They arrested both of them. But when they appeared in court the following week, his friend was fined £100. But Gormy must have come to the magistrate's attention because he gave him 30 days in jail. So that was after that, he kind of disappeared off the radar. He lived in East Belfast. He worked as a tiler. He was a member of the Welders Club, the heart of D Street there. He was a singer. His big song is, wasn't Bob Dylan's song, funnily enough. His big song was and is a song called What Made Milwaukee Famous, which of course is about Schlitz beer. And so he became well known, but the police started to notice he made regular trips to Thailand. So they kept an eye on him, and it appears he had a fondness of women much younger than him, and he was a regular visitor. But
so you were talking about from when he was in his sort of mid-30s, he's been a regular visitor to Thailand, or is it a little bit later?
Yeah, mid-30s, yes, and so it's a long time.
Mm.
But I really first began to look at him in detail after the Loughinisland massacre, when a documentary film called No Stone Unturned was made, and he is mentioned in it as the lead suspect for driving the getaway car.
Mm.
And that's who Gormy McMullan is.
Now, fast forward 30 years, he's still obviously making trips to Thailand, and I presume his career as a terrorist has abated in more recent times. But he is about to get married, or so he tells us, to a Thai woman who's 50 years his junior. And he's announced this on his social media.
He did that. That's right. That's when it came to my attention. She's a very elegant looking young woman by the name of Banapon Nush Jathasang.
Mm-hmm.
And he likes to put up nice pictures of the happy couple together. He's clearly a lot younger than him, although he did get his teeth replaced, what we call here turkey teeth. And he likes to put up nice pictures of them both at the beach. And I noticed that people were on his Facebook account were wishing him all the best. And he said, "Oh, thank you." He said, "I've decided that she is the one." So
she's only 21, and obviously he's 71. And as we say, he's been traveling to and from Thailand for 35 years. So is there any indication why he's getting married? Is this his first marriage, or has he had previous relationships?
No, he was married once before when he was very young. But so he's not been married for certainly 50 years. I think his terms in jail paid to his first marriage. But he appears to have fallen for the lovely Bonapon. And when I rang him last week. I was wanting to ask him where they intended to settle down, because he lives in the heart of East Belfast, very different from the sun-drenched shores of Thailand.
He sounds like a guy with an extremely skewed moral code in many ways, obviously, given his terrorist background and his interest all along. I mean, we all know that in Thailand there is an industry for older guys with a few bob to go out and pick up a young woman, probably from an impoverished background, and lure them with that money, and for other reasons that they will be sort of opening themselves up to marriage for an older foreign guy. But he sounds like a bit of a depraved character in many ways.
Well, he's popular, I've got to say that, amongst his own community. He works as a tailor during the day. He's apparently very, very good at that. He marches. Marching is a big thing in the Loyalist tradition, and he carries a ceremonial sword in a fairly new grouping called the UVF Regimental Band. And as far as marching and playing music is concerned, they are top of the tree. Now, he doesn't play anything, but he dresses in a guard's uniform, although he was never in the guards, and the Irish Guards, and he wears a UVF medal on his left breast, and a fairly bizarre setup. But he is immensely popular. But that clouds the secret life, semi-secret life at least, that he lives on the Asian Peninsula, where he goes to Thailand and sometimes to Vietnam.
Would you imagine he's hidden his past from this young woman, who knows probably nothing about Ireland and certainly the intricacies of what has gone on in the north?
I would imagine she was maybe given a skewed version of it. I mean, McMullan sees himself as a soldier of the UVF, and I was made aware that during a very tense period in the Troubles, towards the end of the violence, just around the time of the Good Friday Agreement, the IRA stepped up their killing in the last 6 months, and about seven Loyalist paramilitary figures were taken out violently in that period. And I was told of a meeting of all the top dogs from across Belfast. And it was attended by, amongst others, Gormy McMullan, who said he was there with the authority of Trevor King, who's dead now, but Trevor King was the leading UVF man in Belfast. And McMullan, who wasn't very well known to the others at the meeting, was asked to introduce himself, and he said he was there with the authority on the authority of Trevor King. You don't get saying that. You're not entitled to say that unless you are. So that gives you an indication of what level he worked at.
Well, as he said himself in that documentary, he found the likes of the Shankill Butchers a decent bunch of lads, didn't see them as monsters, saw them as decent human beings. So he's firmly never changed that attitude to his former comrades. And the marching thing, just a question from somebody from the South, if ever there was. But do you practice marching all year round? Do you just march once a year?
Without a doubt. No.
Yes.
It's part of the Loyalist paramilitary psyche that they can march, although they don't have guns. They march like an army, and they wear uniforms like an army. And it is to let the Catholic community know that if anything ever happened, they were ready in an army. I've studied it in detail of the motivation for it, and it's to make them look like soldiers. But at the end of the day, they are kid-on soldiers.
Yeah.
They're not real soldiers. But this is why I'm fairly sure the lovely Vanapon in Thailand was told by him that he was a soldier.
For sure. And I just happen to, every year it surprises me that this still goes on, July 12th, which is obviously, again, I'm saying that from down here where we don't have this on the streets, and it is quite alien to us. But I was struck by the images on the TV this year about just the levels of kids that are out there with drums and in the crowds, and young and another generation.
But there has been a change for the better, and the Irish government have played a role in this. You would be surprised at the level of cash the Irish government ploughs in annually to downtrodden and underprivileged Loyalist areas. They do it with a heart and a half. Now, we have seen big development, and the burning of the Irish national flag has all but disappeared. It used to be put onto bonfires. There's a couple this year had them on, but by and large, that has stopped. And that has stopped because money has changed hands. And so, they've found out that you get much more with a spoonful of honey than you get with a spoonful of vinegar. And they are being persuaded to change their act. So we do have marching. There's plenty of marching was on, and they are very, very good at it. And they do look like soldiers. But a lot of the Protestant people are not there supporting them. They are away in Donegal.
I was going to ask you that. Is it still the case? I mean, I've been up and down to the north for decades now, and I do recall the dread that people on both sides, be they Protestant or Catholic, used to feel about this marching season. And those who could fled to Donegal, to their holiday homes, or arranged holidays around it so they didn't even have to be in the country for it. But it seems as if it's passing by. It's not quite, I don't hear that as much as I used to.
This year was very quiet. I kept my eye on the whole thing. The flags that went up were not paramilitary flags. They were the Union flag, British Union flag. Some people call it the Union Jack, which is inaccurate. And the other one was the old flag of the Northern Ireland government, which is known as the Ulster Banner. So that's the only flags that were being put up on lampposts. But they are persuading them to put them up where they're only welcome. It was traditionally put up to intimidate the Catholic community. But that is being worked at. And the Irish government has played a superb role. There's a place called Sandy Row in South Belfast. There's a huge mural of King Billy. And it's a beautiful thing. It was commissioned by an artist. And he did it in such a way that if it's defaced in any way, it can be replaced within hours. It was very clever, and everybody likes it. So, and now that there was a paramilitary mural on that wall that's been removed. So and the Irish government made a huge contribution towards that. So there is great developments, and this year I'm sure that they'll be happy. This year passed off peacefully, without a doubt.
And did McMullan march this year? Did he?
He did.
He did.
He did indeed, with his little red sash on and his guard's uniform and his ceremonial sword. Yeah.
I noticed that his social media picture is obviously taken from one of those events where he's photographed in his uniform and with the flag opposed to a gun. It's heavily airbrushed. I would suggest it doesn't show his 71 years, but obviously he's into keeping up appearances as much as he can. But just a question for you, is there anything that he is currently under investigation for? Has he escaped certain aspects of his past, or is there still any sort of criminal investigations around events he may have been caught up in?
I would say there's nothing. He's a number of things came together at the same time after Loughinisland. The spotlight was on Gormy McMullan after Loughinisland, and named in the film. He never took any action against the filmmakers. They also reported the seedy side of his life and the trips to Thailand, the kind of odd sexual stuff he was involved in, which I can't remember the detail of. It was fairly bizarre. They mentioned all that. But the investigation into Loughinisland leaves a lot to be desired. And there are huge demands for... The allegation is that there were informants who had to be protected. And by any stretch of the imagination, the police investigation into the Loughinisland shootings was scandalously under-investigated. And he benefited from that.
Right. So, in other words, he is free. There's no shackles from his past holding him back, and he is free to go ahead and marry this lady.
All of them appear confident to me, Nicola, that they will never be made amenable for what they were named in the film. They could have taken action if they felt they had been defamed in any way. None of them did. So,
right. Well, look, we'll follow and see whether this very public engagement actually comes to fruition at an altar or wherever it is they choose to marry. Thank you very much, Hugh Jordan.
Okay, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.